KOPN Columbia 89.5 FM. My name is Mike Hagan. This is Radio Orbit. I'll be back in just a few minutes.
I wanna be the name you call to your sick bed. When medicine fails to calm you, I'll be left holding the light of God, living the dark of man, wrapping my cards in red, kissing your tired hand. I wanna make a toast, but my throat's too raw and red. The good news we down is hard, is all the bad. They say that the light of God stifles the dark of man. I stand in the shadow, illuminated. Tell you that his voice is just inside your head. I see you hit the water and sink as hard as lead. Honey, rest in the light of God. Honey, those were the darkest days. Copper and Genesis, blame them for your mistakes. I leave aside for the light of day, a blinding headache all of the way. What good is the truth when you're dead anyway? Hey, what did I say? Oh, 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 what did I Oh, what did I say? What did I say? What did I say?
All right, this is another nice one from Ray Fitzgerald. It's Mike Hagan. You're listening to Radio Orbit on KOPN Columbia 89.5 FM. It's just about 5 minutes after midnight on the 9th of October, 2018. And we're going to get right to my interview here with Miss Lynn Ulbricht. My guest tonight is Miss Lynn Ulbricht. Lynn is the mother of Ross Ulbricht, a young man who at 31 years of age was sentenced to double life without parole, all for nonviolent charges associated with the creation of the Silk Road website. No victims were ever named at trial. It's a remarkable story and one that we're going to delve into this evening. Right now, as a matter of fact, I'd like to say hello to Lynn Ulbricht. Hi, Lynn. Thanks a ton for coming on Radio Orbit.
Well, hey, Mike, thanks so much for having me. Great to talk to you.
You're welcome. I appreciate you taking the time. And before we get too deeply into it, I would like you to just tell my audience a little bit about yourself, maybe just where you're from and just a little bit of background so they know who we're talking to here.
Sure. Well, I grew up in New York, but ended up spending, I guess it's really most of my life at this point, in Austin, Texas, where we raised Ross and his sister. And I have actually a journalism degree from University of Missouri in Columbia, where you are right now.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
Yeah, and also have been an entrepreneur. My husband and I both. We still have a business. And, pretty independent people who, want to go about our business and, regular people. And so we lived in Austin, and it was a lot different then. It was very laid back and a nice place to raise kids.
I've spent a little time in Austin. It's a beautiful city.
Yeah, it is. It's gotten a lot bigger, but
yeah, I haven't been there for quite some time. But so Ross grew up there in Austin.
Yeah, so Ross grew up in Austin, and Ross has just been a joy, really, throughout his whole life. This has been a horrible trial for us, but I mean, Ross himself was a joy to raise. He was an easygoing, sweet kid, very laid back, and he still is. He's a very laid back guy, which is good because he's in some very intense situations sometimes.
Yeah, he is.
And but he's very likable because he likes people, and they like him, and that fits in the prison as well as anywhere else. And so it's been good because Ross has some people in the staff of the prison as well as many people and with inmates who really like Ross and care about him. And so and don't think he should be in there. And he's got a really easygoing, pleasant personality. He's very funny. He's very funny and fun loving. Lots of fun to hang out with. You'd like him, Mike.
I'm sure I would. Sure. What kind of schooling did he have? What kind of education did he have?
He went, as far as he obviously graduated from high school, and then he he was a scholarship student, a full scholarship student in physics at University of Texas, Dallas. He worked there on a solar cell project, for solar energy.
Really?
And wrote some academic papers that as soon as he was arrested, the university took down, which I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Anyway, so he took those down. But in any case, and by the way, he was not a computer programmer. He's never been trained in it. He didn't go to school for it. After his getting his bachelor's in physics, he went to graduate school at Penn State in material science.
Okay.
And that's where Ross really became on fire for freedom because he worked in the Ron Paul campaign at Penn State.
Right.
And got turned on to Austrian economics and von Mises and all of that philosophy. And
so that was probably around 2007 or 2008 when Ron Paul was running the first time.
The 8 campaign, right exactly.
Okay, I was a strong advocate of Dr. Paul as well, and I think it was really unfortunate that he didn't get more attention. I think the country would have went in a different direction over these last 15 years. So.
Oh, absolutely would have. Yeah.
Okay, so Ross is at Penn State and working on material science.
Yeah, and he actually put himself through grad school. And it really upset me when the judge in her sentencing threw in, Ross being privileged, as if that justified her draconian sentence. And meanwhile, she's a multimillionaire. But anyway, he wasn't privileged. I mean, he was a regular middle-class kid who worked hard and put himself through school.
Right.
We weren't rich or anything. It's like, regular people. And and then when he had an opportunity or was offered an opportunity to go get his PhD at Cornell, and he turned it down. He said his passion wasn't there anymore, which, of course, I'm pulling my hair out because I'm like, what do you mean you're turning it down? But he really felt strongly that his passion and his just what he thought was important lay in liberty and free markets and really the potential for cryptocurrency and financial freedom, which, he was Bitcoin. He was starting to tell me about this thing called Bitcoin.
Right.
And in fact, I said, should I get some? And he goes, no, Mom, it's too volatile. And meanwhile, it's like under $1, and I'm like, oh, God, that was really not good.
Well,
but anyway.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more deeply, but I think Bitcoin is a big part of this story, much more than what
Absolutely.
Ross actually did or didn't do himself. But
it's why Ross is in there. I believe, in getting, I shouldn't say in there at all, but it's why he got this sentence.
Is that right? That's what you think?
Talk about that. I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right. So before we get to that, let's talk real briefly, if you could, for people who aren't really familiar with the Silk Road, because eventually Ross got involved or started the website called the Silk Road. Is that correct?
Yeah, he created a video game based on, free markets and all of these principles to try to have it get out there and have people have an actual experience of it through a video game. And he even had a designer ready to go and everything, but it fell through.
Okay.
And so then he turned to the internet and created this website, Silk Road. And he did not create it as a drug website.
Right.
He he wasn't a druggie, that's not his thing. He created it as a platform that would be private and anonymous because, we're as you can see, I'm sure you're aware, the surveillance state is encroaching on all of us. And, he felt that and wanted people to be able to buy and sell things as long as they didn't hurt somebody else. It was a free choice, privately.
Right.
And so it was anonymous, but because it was voluntary, things were prohibited. It wasn't totally open market like many of the dark websites. It did have restrictions such as child pornography was not allowed, stolen property, assault weapons, violent services. There were many things, things that harmed or defrauded.
Understand. Yeah.
So there was a standard, and actually Curtis Green, who you may know, he's putting out a book. He was a high-level administrator on the site. Said he would spend day after day after day patrolling the site to find things that hurt people and defrauded them.
Right.
Now, the libertarian view is that drugs are a choice. If you want to do drugs, and you're an adult and all that. Now, it's hard to regulate as far as how young someone is. However, in order to get on this site, you had to know how to use Tor, the Tor router.
Right.
I still haven't figured that one out. You had to open up and fund a Bitcoin account because the only means of exchange was Bitcoin. And, you had to have a pretty, it was not easy necessarily to get on there unless you were, so it wasn't as accessible as, say, Amazon or eBay or something like that.
And Lynn, for a moment, just for my listeners who aren't aware, a Tor browser or a Tor network is what they call an onion router, and basically it's a way to move traffic from one site, one IP address to others, and kind of bounce it all around the planet, so that it's very difficult to kind of find out where the signal originates from. So that's what Tor is, and it's used by many people now. It's actually quite popular and quite handy as well if you don't want to be tracked with everything that you do,
Oh, yeah. Dissidents around the world use it. Journalists use it. The government in their papers about Ross said, if you use Tor, you have criminal intent. And this is how they see it. Right. They want to know everything about us.
Yeah, I know.
But that is absurd. And it's not true.
Oh, okay, so eventually the Silk Road gets rolling, and it gets kind of big, or bigger than Ross probably imagined that it would get, and probably pretty hard to manage, I guess.
Yeah, especially if you're not a computer programmer. Actually, as far as the details about how it all unfolded, I'd really recommend that people just start following something we've already posted called Railroaded.
Yes. Which
is a narrative of the record. It's all based on public record, government documents, all kinds of different things that lay out the story that, Ross says is the story, and that the record says is the story. It's basically that Ross created the site, got out, it got to be too much, and but was lured back in at the end. And, look, I'm not saying Ross didn't make mistakes. From my perspective, he did definitely make mistakes. Right. He was young. He was 26. He was very idealistic and zealous. He's matured. He's 34 now.
Right.
And he's had a lot of time to think. And, he's still totally a liberty guy.
Yes.
But he's matured. And to put anyone, and I don't even just mean Ross, because he recently we published a picture that he organized to have taken of himself with several other inmates in this prison, maximum security prison where he is now. They're all nonviolent, are serving life for nonviolent drug offenses.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people in the criminal justice system now who are nonviolent, and they have life sentences, and they life sentences have quintupled.
I know, it's
since
unbelievable.
The drug war. It's really alarming. It's a terrible thing, and it's so destructive. That judge gave him life. Yeah.
Lynn, let's give out the website right now. If you want information, like Lynn's saying, if you really want to get into the details of the story, you can go to freeross, FREEROSS.org. That's freeross.org. And if you go to my site at mikehagan.com, you'll see a photo on the front page there of Lynn and Ross and a bunch of links underneath there where you can connect with Lynn's website, and you can read as much as you'd like. There's all kinds of interviews there. There's a tremendous amount of information. And there's also a link to a petition that that we could talk about. Lynn, let's at least mention that right now.
Great, thank you. If you go to the homepage of freeross.org, there's a big banner for the petition. You can click and go right to it. There's also a banner for Railroaded, this thing, which is also an audio, by the way. It's not, you can just sit and listen to it.
Right.
So, but anyway, the petition, yes.
What is the petition for exactly?
It's for asking President Trump to commute Ross's draconian sentence, basically. And so, because once you're in prison, getting an actual pardon is hardly, it's only happened once that I know of. And, but a commutation, the difference is you can't vote and you're still a felon. You can't vote and you can't own a firearm in the United States.
Okay.
So, but he would be a free man.
Right.
He would be out, depending on, the commutation, but if it was time served, for example. Mm-hmm. That would be, he's done 5 years. He's not a threat to anyone. Anybody who's in that prison will tell you that.
Right.
It's a waste of taxpayer money. It's a waste of a life and a valuable life. And it's, there's so much of this. I mean, I don't mean Ross is the only one. It's not unique.
That's right.
But he happens to be my son, and I'm focusing on him right now.
Right.
But honestly, I feel the same way. I mean, we helped another inmate get a petition up with his mom. She didn't know how to do it, that kind of thing. We're helping as much as we can. I'm stretched pretty thin. But I feel like, when you get to know the families and you get to even know the inmates, because some of them, when they have visitors, we're all in the same visiting room, this is un-American. This is a sick thing. This is a totalitarian thing. Yeah. And I just, feel very passionately about it. It's personal. But, people need to understand what's really going on. So this petition, basically the sentence set a precedent for excessive sentencing in this country. It's terrible. And by reversing, commuting his sentence, it will set a precedent the other way to say, hey,
right,
people change. Especially nonviolent. People change. They mature. Second chances. This should be a country of second chances. If you prove yourself. And, it's just, in a federal system, there's no parole.
Right.
It's done.
Right.
You cannot get out.
Right.
Except for things like commutation.
Well, his sentence compared to what he was actually charged with and actually convicted of, I mean, is completely out of line with similar cases and precedents that have been set before. In fact, there are a number of cases that you list on the website that mention some other men, and there may be some women in there, I forget, but people who have been charged with similar crimes, and the sentencing is absolutely ridiculous when compared.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, the guy who ran Silk Road 2, which the government itself said was identical and was bigger,
right,
had
it was
more
supposed
drugs,
to be bigger, yeah.
He never served any time. He's out. I don't know where he is. Mm-hmm. He's not saying, but he's not in jail and never was. He was there for 13 days.
Right.
So, in any case, no, it's completely a huge disparity, which is wrong. The law is supposed to treat people with similar offenses in a similar way, and it's not at all. It's a complete government abuse of power,
right,
and it's political, which brings us, let me just say, I think the reason is because, the biggest drug seller who actually sold drugs, they're not saying Ross actually sold drugs,
right,
got 10 years, and it goes down from there. But anyway...
the guy who sold the most on Silk Road got 10 years.
Yes, that is correct.
And Ross essentially did nothing but operate the website for a particular period of time, and not even
a platform.
And Ross didn't operate the website in its entirety toward the end either, did it? Weren't there some other people involved?
It's very obvious,
right?
That there's no way that someone without computer programming training, off his laptop in a cafe or something, is running a multi-million-dollar empire here. It's just not. It's ridiculous. There's tons of anecdotal evidence, as well as real evidence, that was discovered after trial that there were many DPRs Because in the reason what was discovered after trial was, and that's the handle of they say Ross's handle.
Yeah, make sure people know what that was. Yeah,
Dread Pirate Roberts.
Dread Pirate Roberts.
From
it's a reference.
Princess Bride.
And I wanted to comment on that actually because that choice of nickname alone or moniker is sort of indicative because that character, it's a brilliant movie actually, a very fun and funny movie, but the character Dread Pirate Roberts in The Princess Bride is actually a very sort of comical, fun-loving, sort of lovable character, certainly not someone who's out to cause a whole lot of trouble. I mean, he was a little bit mischievous, but
Well, the whole idea with it, though, was he would pass the baton.
That's right.
To the next Dread Pirate Roberts.
That's right.
It was never, the whole point of it was there was not one. And what happened was, what was discovered after trial, because the government dumped so much material on the defense that they kept weeding through it after trial, was that someone from the Dread Pirate Roberts account logged into the Silk Road Forum after Ross was in solitary.
Oh, my gosh.
Who was that?
Right.
Ross took the brunt and took the blame for everything on there. There was not one witness to say he was that person. It's just, there's so many egregious problems with this whole thing. And it puts us all in peril because if we don't have fair trials and we don't have fairness in our justice system, we're on our way to tyranny very fast.
I agree. Lynn, how was...
I forget what we were talking about before that. I was before we got off on a tangent, but that's okay.
I think we were talking about the disparity of sentencing, but I'd like to ask you about Chuck Schumer and how he's involved.
Oh, yeah, that is what I wanted to talk about, actually, because I said it's political.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so Senator Chuck Schumer, who is on the Senate Finance Committee and the Banking Committee, he's very much embedded with the financial powers out of, New York.
Right.
He was behind and called for the takedown of Bitcoin, the crackdown of Bitcoin, and get the Silk Road down. He was, huge grandstanding on the steps of the courthouse, blah, blah, blah.
Of course.
And so he was behind it, the whole thing happening and getting this kind of impetus and getting this frantic. It's very interesting if you look at Railroaded, because it goes into all of the different characters involved with the investigation, and it's pretty fascinating. But anyway, so Preet Bharara, who was fired by President Trump, but Preet Bharara was the lead prosecutor in the case.
Was he Homeland Security?
No, Preet Bharara was the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. So he's the lead prosecutor. He no longer has that job.
I see.
But
okay.
Schumer was responsible for giving him that job. It's a very powerful position, as well as Schumer was his special counsel for about 5 years. They're very close associates and collaborators.
Okay.
The judge, Forrest, was recommended by Schumer to Obama for the bench. Ross was brought back from California, where he was arrested and lived, to New York, Schumer's state, to be tried.
Why wasn't he tried in California?
Because I guess Schumer wanted him in New York.
So purely
there really isn't there's no reason for New York to be able to basically extradite, although it's not a country, but, bring him back, except the Southern District, and Schumer wanted it.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. It's very political and cozy. And, oh, God, what was I going to say the last thing? Can't remember now. But, Schumer came out before trial publicly denouncing Ross as guilty. He said to Eric Holder, the Attorney General, "Congratulations, you got your man." Jeez. I'm like, excuse me?
Unbelievable.
We haven't had a trial. What happened to the presumption of innocence?
Right.
So now we're guilty until proven innocent.
I'll tell you what,
and
that's
that
the
was
way
the whole theme for the whole thing. It was all stacked against him, and it is every single defendant. Every defendant has everything stacked against them if they choose to go to trial. That's why 98% of accused people are bullied and threatened by prosecutors, and they often will not go because they're told they're going to lose and get a worse punishment than if they just serve whatever time, even if they're innocent. And we're losing trial by jury. It's a huge problem. And so anyway, Chuck Schumer basically tainted the jury pool, which was in New York. He's the senator there saying Ross was guilty even before trial.
Right. Unbelievable. All right, we're going to take a little break, I think, here, and we'll come back with Lynn Ulbricht in just a few minutes. It's Mike. You listen to Radio Orbit on KOPN Columbia, 89.5 FM, and we're going to hear song here from Ray Fitzgerald. Take a little break if you want to go grab a soda or a beer or a glass of wine or a whiskey or have a smoke or whatever. Now's your chance. This one is dedicated to the mother chucker. This is called Dark Man. It's Ray Fitzgerald on Radio Orbit, KOPN Columbia.
Song come on strong, bourbon brown, my wasted dawn. You know I'm gone before I'm on. Something's wrong, I think something's wrong. How did it get to the place that I call home? Food in my stomach without a broken bone. I know where I've been, but not sure where I've gone. Did I come here all alone? My father was a very dark man, and that dark man was my best friend. My mother raised his kids Christians, and now we're tattoo pagans. My father was a very dark man, and that dark man was my best friend. My mother raised his kids Christians, and now we're tattoo pagans. Shoot my gun up at the sun. Am I too young to have some fun? No one's come, can't be undone. Overrun with wanton love. How did it get to the place that I call home? Food in my stomach without a broken bone. I know where I've been, but not sure where I've gone. Did I come here all alone? My father was a very dark man, and that dark man was my best friend. My mother raised his kids Christians, and now we're tattoo pagans. My father was a very dark man, and that dark man was my best friend. My mother raised his kids Christians, and now we're tattoo pagans. I've got bad blood with our Savior, can't get off on good behavior. Separate like oil and water, Holy Father, foster daughter.
Once again, the remarkable Ray Fitzgerald. That one's called Dark Man. It's from her record Popular Songs for Wholesome Families. It's Mike. You listen to Radio Orbit on KOPN Columbia 89.5 FM. It's about 12:30 now in the AM on the 9th of October, 2018. We're going to get right back to my interview with Lynn Ulbricht. And at the top of the hour, we'll open the phone lines and take some phone calls. I know it's a very controversial topic, and I know there are two sides to all stories, and I don't think this is very clear all the way through. I just think that Miss Ulbricht deserves a forum for her side of the story, and I think that the liberty and constitutional questions that the case brings up are more important than the case itself, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that now in the next half hour. It's Mike. This is Radio Orbit, KOPN Columbia, and this is Lynn Ulbricht. I'd like to mention again the website for the petition. So let's once again say freeross.org. And once again...
/petition. You can just go /petition after that and go right to it.
Okay.
Or the website, and there's a banner, just another step, but,
Right.
I think, I'm going to look right now, but I think we have over 87,000 signatures.
Incredible. 87. And
yeah.
It's only been live for a couple weeks, hasn't it?
Oh, no, it's been, I think it was, when was it? I think it's been since July 13th.
Okay, so it's been a couple months.
Still
pretty remarkable, almost 100,000
people.
Pretty good,
yeah.
And we're going to get some more for you, hopefully, in the next few days
you.
here, because I'm going to make sure that as many people hear this program as possible. So,
thank you. I definitely want, my goal is 500,000, but six figures at all would be, significant.
Well, I think
we'll make it.
I think so.
People... Every day, people are signing it that hear about this. Because the thing is, you may say, oh, Silk Road was really bad. Get it? I get that. Or Ross is really bad. Although, I urge people to learn the full story.
Right.
But for a nonviolent first-time offender to get this kind of sentence, that's wrong. That is a cruel and unusual punishment, which
Absolutely.
is a violation of the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution. And it needs to be changed. It's wrong. And this, by commuting Ross's sentence, this will help change that for many people, not just, he happens to be high profile, but there are many thousands. There's 17,000 nonviolent people with a life sentence now in the United States.
It's amazing. One of the notes that I had here that I'd like to talk about at some point is the so-named prison industrial complex. And
yes,
how,
I would love to talk about that.
Yes, and how that sort of plays into all of this.
Yeah. Well, what I've learned, and I've learned it up close and personal, unfortunately, I really didn't think about that before Ross was arrested, and I don't think most people do. But there is a gulag being grown in our country. The prison population is larger than 4 states. It's bigger than 4 states in the United States.
Aren't there, I think, some 2 or 3 million people incarcerated in this country?
I think between 2 and 3 million. And it has metastasized 800% since the drug war. The drug war is responsible for about 60% of the people in prison.
Unbelievable.
And, the drug war, it's America's longest war. It's been dragging on since for 45 years, and over $1 trillion in taxpayer money and mounting, and people are still doing drugs. They can't even keep drugs out of the prison with this drug war.
Right.
It doesn't work. And so it's like, but I think even the government, as inefficient and as sometimes very stupid as they are, knows this.
Yeah.
I don't think that's why they continue to wage the drug war. I think it's about power, shredding our constitutional protections, and money. And it's a huge money-making operation, the mass incarceration. And there are so many subsidiary businesses and services, and both private and public, that feed off basically what I consider human trafficking.
Yes. If
you're making money off of human beings, you are engaged in human trafficking, and that is what our government is doing. The excessive sentences is part of this, because the longer you keep somebody in, the more profitable they are. And the idea that we would have private prisons, although I don't think the public prisons are particularly, I think that's both. But, it's not even really a private prison. I couldn't go buy an acre of land and build a prison and say, hey, okay, I've got my private prison. No, it's a complete crony thing.
Right.
But, but it's disgusting. And judges and prosecutors can invest in private prisons on Wall Street.
Yeah.
This is human trafficking. It's destroying families. And gosh, when you see the kids, you go in there, and, families are in there, and the kids, and they're clinging to their dad. They're so hungry for him. And then they have to leave. They're just shattered. They're crying and sobbing and clinging to him. And you're like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, this, it's one thing. Look, I understand society needs to be protected from actually violent people.
Right.
But this is wrong. People learn, they change, and I don't know. It's just I think it's really a sick thing, and it's not American values. It's really not. It's really wrong.
Yeah, I agree completely. And you mentioned the Eighth Amendment a few minutes ago, and I was thinking in this case, there are a number of constitutional amendments that have been violated throughout this whole story.
That's true.
The Fourth, of course, comes to mind right off the bat.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit more, if you don't mind, about privacy. And, I'd also like to mention that there are some very shady operations that the FBI was involved with in this case, and a lot of which I don't think has even been resolved yet. Maybe it has or maybe it hasn't. But I mean, there was all kinds of real shady things going on the side that had nothing to do with your son, and people walked away with a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of money unaccounted for. Well, there were two corrupt agents. One was DEA. The other was Secret Service, also working for the NSA, had all the NSA abilities.
My gosh.
And they were at the core of the investigation in Maryland. And they had access to the site. They had unfettered access, keys to the kingdom. They could change anything on the forum, marketplace. They could commandeer accounts and act as any account, including Dread Pirate Roberts. They could change PIN numbers, passwords, get bank account, keys to bank accounts. They could run the show.
They had the run of the place, yeah.
They did. And we don't know what they did. They were arrested. They admitted guilt. They are in prison. But all of their emails are still encrypted. The government did not make that, a contingency for their for anything. I mean, they managed to bully everybody else into everything, but they didn't get that. So there's so much encrypted information, and I'd love to read their emails, and undisclosed and sealed information in this case. And I'm like, why? Isn't it over? Can't we see what really went on? And just with the public information with Railroaded, we're able to get into a lot of stuff. But in any case, yeah, so there's these two. And then we believe there's a third agent. It's pretty obvious there was a third corrupt agent who was selling DPR information. And this was discovered again after trial and in all the information. And it was discovered that probably that person, but somebody with high-level access, deleted a bunch of the record. So that a whole section of the record right before Ross was arrested, something was going on, and it was deleted. So the jury never knew about it. Nobody knew about it until after trial. And you can't. I talked to forensic experts, and they said you cannot tell if digital information has been tampered with. You can't tell. It's impossible. It's not like it leaves a fingerprint, right? It's just bleep gone.
Right.
And so this was discovered because another identical file, but that was complete, not totally complete, but more complete, was discovered after trial. And there it was, all this other stuff. And so why isn't it over here? Because it was deleted.
Unbelievable.
Tampering.
Evidence tampering. And much of that evidence wasn't even admitted, correct?
Well, yeah, because they didn't have, it wasn't in,
It wasn't even made available, yeah.
No, I mean, nobody knew about
it
except, the government may have known about it, but, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it's an unbelievable story. So, Ross, recently, I think it's been 5 years as of October the 1st. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, it's not something to celebrate, but I know that he has a lot of friends out here, and there's what seems to be a very gaining momentum movement to gather more attention toward his particular scenario or his predicament, I guess I should say, and I think that you're doing a great job, just by being persistent and not giving up, Lynn, and
yeah, I can't give up, he's my kid, I can't do it, and he's a good person, it's like, maybe if he had really been a monster,
I understand.
But he's not.
Yeah.
In fact, he's a lot to contribute.
I understand.
A lot to contribute.
I'm a father. I have two young sons. I've got a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old son, and I've been in some trouble myself, and I've been around a little bit, and I know what it's like on the inside of a cell, and I know the stories that go on inside there, and a lot of them are extremely sad and heart-wrenching and unfair because there are a whole lot of people that are incarcerated in this country that shouldn't be.
That's very true.
Even out of the ones that actually are guilty of something, like you mentioned, I mean, very many of them are nonviolent drug offenses. They're, what did you say, 60%?
Yeah.
60%.
Are drug offenders, and I think, I may be wrong about the nonviolent part of the 60%, but I mean, if it's violence, it's like in a gang thing or something like that.
Right,
but I'm not actually sure. It may be nonviolent.
I think you might.
It's drugs anyway. It's
right.
definitely drug related.
Right.
Hey, look, if the drug war ended, a lot of good things would happen, like the cartels would be gone and all that. But also, the prisons would be practically out of business.
Right. Well, and like you said earlier, that causes big trouble for a lot of people that are making a whole bunch of money off of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, let me just give you an example of how egregious it is.
Yes, please.
Ross has a friend in there named Tony. He's doing life for marijuana selling.
Life.
Marijuana. 13 years ago. He's already done 13 years.
Unbelievable.
And the prison is in Colorado where it's legal on the state level.
Unbelievable.
And he's doing life. Now, this is part of this evil 3 strikes law from Bill Clinton, but which a lot of people are in there because of that.
Yeah.
But another guy's in there. His 3rd strike was residue on a dollar bill.
My God.
Which any of us could have getting at any 7-Eleven. Give me a break.
Right.
But he's doing life. He's so it's just sick. And but I did want to say, you mentioned support, and I just want to say we just got a wonderful example of support. There's an artist named Vesa, Vesa, who is a pretty famous artist, and he is donating half the proceeds of this $50,000 painting to our defense fund for Ross. And
wow, that's
going to be
fantastic.
displayed. I know, it's so amazing. He's doing this, and it's going to be displayed at World CryptoCon in Las Vegas over at the end of October. And but we're going to have an auction, and you don't have to be at the conference to bid on it. We're going to have it up. I haven't quite figured out how to do this technically. We were talking about technical stuff, but I'm going to enlist help and get an auction up where people can do an online auction and maybe get this painting, and also a letter from Ross.
Fantastic. I'll try to find some information on that, and I'll link to that.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, send me that, and I'll link that up on my website as well. Okay.
Oh, that's great.
All right. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about?
We want to talk about privacy.
Yes, let's talk about privacy and I guess freedom, because I think that privacy and freedom sort of go together. I don't think you can have one without the other.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
you can't have a free life if you don't have a private life. If you're in a surveillance state, you are not a free person.
Yes, I agree.
Period.
So what have you learned over these last 5-10 years about that?
Well, one thing is that I just want to focus on for a second is one of the main questions in our Supreme Court petition, because we got all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Tell people about that, because so the court the case was appealed a number of times all the way up to the Supreme Court. Well,
it was appealed. Well, yeah, you could say a number of times. It was appealed to the Second Circuit.
Okay.
New York again, and then they denied it, and then we said, how about a rehearing? Because for these reasons, one of which was a First Amendment violation of the judge who referenced Ross's political and philosophical beliefs to enhance her sentence.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is pretty scary. But that was denied, of course. We have a lot of, it's like the courts are difficult. And so then the next step is the Supreme Court. And we had the best lawyers in the country, Williams and Connolly, who were great. And they submitted 2 important questions for consideration by the court. One was, did the judge, or they're saying the judge did, violate the Sixth Amendment, which is a right to a jury trial, when she used uncharged crimes that were not ruled on by a jury, specifically, well, there were a couple of things, but mainly murder for hire that was never proven, never brought to trial. The charges in Maryland have now been dropped. It's all gone. That she used it to enhance and justify this sentence without a jury. And that's why we have a Sixth Amendment, is to protect the accused from some judge or some prosecutor overriding a jury.
Absolutely.
You're supposed to have 12 of your peers decide. So there's a reason there's more than one person. So that was a violation. And for her excessive, justifying her barbaric sentence. And then the other question was a privacy issue. It was a Fourth Amendment issue. And basically what it was about is the government secretly, without oversight, without a warrant, without probable cause, basically surveilled Ross's internet traffic and browsing history. And they have been doing this to everyone that they want to since 1979. Well, actually, we didn't have internet in 1979, but they've been using a ruling from 1979 called the third-party doctrine that is based on the dial telephone. That's how antiquated it is. Unreal. And, of course, when you had the dial telephone, you didn't have all the sensitive information that's available from your internet history. Right. And it's justified by that. And so we were saying, look, this needs to be updated. They should at least have to get a warrant and have some oversight. They also aimed a directional antenna at Ross's house so they could track him in the house without a warrant.
Unbelievable.
That means they can, anytime they want, to any of us, they can do this to us.
Yeah.
And they don't have a warrant. Nobody knows about it. They don't have to reveal it. No permission from magistrate judge, nothing. So this is a Fourth Amendment problem because, first of all, they're supposed to have a warrant to name what they're after. It's preventing the kind of rummaging through everything there is without anybody knowing. That's why they wrote the Fourth Amendment. So the court, it looked like they were going to consider it because they didn't. There's just different rounds. So round one, we didn't get thrown out. We were the only case that did not get thrown out that round. But then, unfortunately, it didn't make it past the final thing, and they denied it. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I try not to get my hopes up because I've been so devastated so many times.
I'm sure.
But I still really kind of thought they were going to do it.
Right.
I really did. I thought it was time, and I thought they would do it, and they didn't. And so that leaves all of us more exposed to our medical records, our religious affiliations, our sexual orientation and apps, all our apps, our political interests. And,
Absolutely.
people might go, well, that's fine. I don't care. But they can use this to blackmail officials, judges, congressmen, women. They can use it to pursue and persecute people of a different political persuasion that they,
yes.
There's all kinds of nefarious potential, and it's a slippery slope. I mean, there's no restraint on this. And look, how many people actually have a physical file cabinet with papers that they use very much? I mean, I don't.
Right.
It's all on the internet or on your computer, and it's terrifying. And the law has not kept up with the realities of the digital age.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and not only can they harvest all of your information, they can also plant information and make it look like you did something, that whether you did it or not, it looks like you did, So
totally.
And in
look,
fact,
they can doctor digital information, and by the way, 99.9% of the evidence, quote unquote, in Ross's was digital.
Mm-hmm.
That's why a mortgage company won't take a screenshot of a bank statement because they know.
Right.
They want to see the original. They know you can change a screenshot.
That's right.
And yet, a judge can put a man away for life, mostly based on that same kind of flimsy digital evidence that can be changed without any trace.
Right.
So, yes, and they can plant things. And I was told by a crypto expert, it's child's play for them, child's play. It's a few minutes, and they do it.
Yeah. The tools at their disposal are very sophisticated, and if you're in their sights, you're in trouble, frankly.
You are very much in trouble. Very much. They're ruthless. They're absolutely ruthless.
Yes. And I would like to add that, I used to work for the Department of Defense, but back a long time ago in the late 80s into sort of the mid 90s. And I was a private contractor just doing some private work. And I was in Germany for most of this time. And even though I didn't report directly to a military supervisor, I got pretty deeply involved in some of the ways that they operate, and I was frightened to a certain extent. I was also sort of interested because I didn't know that the world worked that way. And and one of the things that I've come to realize is that it really doesn't have anything to do with race or gender or religion. It has to do with playing ball. And if you cause some trouble for somebody, depending on the level and the person that it is, I don't care what you look like or where you come from, they're going to take care of you and get you out of the way. And we've seen many examples of that over the years. I think your son is a recent example of it. He was clearly
Definitely.
made an example of. Clearly,
Yes,
the sentencing.
They said so.
Everything. It's just
And it's about. It was. Look, Bitcoin is a very very rebellious idea.
You bet it
and
is.
And you know what? I don't think they like having their money threatened. It's like, what is this upstart currency that all of a sudden we can't control or tax or what's going on here? It's getting a little big. We got to crush this.
Yeah, and Ross got caught in the crosshairs of the three big ones, of the cyber crime, the drug thing, and the financial side of things.
Yep.
I mean,
it's like, oh my God. I said he didn't get in trouble when I was raising him. He's made up for it now. Like, oh my God.
Oh well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's a heartbreaking story, and I want, more than anything, for this message to continue to get out there and to percolate through the population and to get more people involved, because it is about everybody. It's not just about Ross. It's about it's about freedom and liberty and about what it is to be American. That's what used to separate us from all of these other ideas of countries and nation states, is that the presumption of innocence primarily, and the
rights of the individual, a fair justice system.
Absolutely, the right to question your accuser, the right to a jury trial, all these things, and they've been denied to your son, and they've been denied to a lot of other people, and we've got to turn that around, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Essential. Mm-hmm.
Lynn, may I ask you a question? I had a note here about a gentleman. I should have asked you earlier because it's probably not related to what we're talking about directly right now. But I wanted to ask you about a guy named Max Karpeles.
No, it's Mark Karpeles.
Mark, okay. Well, because I learned a little bit about him through your website, but when I was looking out on the internet, I read a whole bunch of stuff in preparation for our talk, and I found nothing about his involvement. Well,
it came out in trial. It was all, we talk about it in Railroad because it's part of the record. Right. And Railroad is strictly based on the record. It's not something I think is necessarily even right. I don't know. I have no idea. We're just putting forth the record. And in the third day of trial, the main investigator, Homeland Security investigator, Jared Yergin, it came out that he suspected Mark Karpeles was DPR from the beginning. He spent 1,000 hours and 2 years on the site undercover. He had gotten a subpoena for a search warrant for Karpeles' email. He believed it, and he had reasons to believe it, his reasons. And so that's, I don't know, who was DPR the whole, and I don't know if any one person was. Right. But that was why Mark Karpeles came up, and it's on Railroaded. It's really in the beginning. So the first episode is the only one we've aired so far. We're airing the second one next week. Okay. But, and it's going to be, again, it's audio and you can read it. And I think there's over 380 footnotes. I mean, it's very, very well documented. Right. So it's not me or the team that worked on it speaking. It is just relaying, because it's such a hard case to wrap your head around. There's so many aspects to it. It is a crazy story. It's an unbelievable story. It's so confusing. Yeah. So this is a way to kind of sequentially say, okay, based on the record, which may or may not be true, but based on the record, this is how it unfolded. And so, and it's kind of entertaining. It's sort of, kind of fascinating. You get to see a lot of how investigators and the government work and when they're going after somebody. It's pretty interesting. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's an ongoing saga, and I hope that there's a happy ending here eventually. And
Me too.
I really do, Lynn. And hopefully you've got some good momentum going here. I know you've been very busy lately because I've seen your name quite a bit out there on the internet, and there have been a number of news stories about you and about Ross in the last week or so. Is there anything particular going on that's sort of increased that the news sort of awareness?
Well, I don't know if it's in the news, but now that we're out of the judicial realm pretty much and into the political realm, I'm really trying to focus on political connections. And so if anyone has any,
right,
please contact me, because I really feel my goal is to convince the president that this is worth his time and his attention, and that it's unjust, and please consider what's really going on here and commute this sentence. So that's a political thing, and access and that sort of thing. And
right.
Anyone who can help. So that's what I'm mostly focused on, besides the fact that I'm always, especially now, again, needing to raise money.
Yes.
Because lawyers, you need them, and they're very expensive.
Yeah.
So,
can people donate on the site? Do you have a?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
You can donate in crypto or in dollars, or basically.
Okay, great. So again, that's on the web at freeross, FREEROSS.org. Make sure you take a trip over there and either listen to or read, if you like, the entire story. It's really a remarkable story. It really is fascinating, and if you can remove yourself from it, it's like it reads like a James Bond story or something like that. But there are real people involved, and real families and emotions and lives, and it's a serious situation, not just for Lynn and her family, but for many other people out there.
Right.
And I think if people can help share this information, maybe we can stem the tide a little bit. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm going to be available for you in the future if you'd like to talk ever again. If you ever need a platform, if you want to say something, or if you need some time on the air, you can always get a hold of me, and I'll make sure that we figure out a way to do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's.
Great to talk to you. Yeah.
All right, Lynn. Well, thank you very much again. You're a remarkable woman. I commend you on your persistence and your strength, and I'm praying for you. And you just hang in there and do the best you can. All right.
I sure will. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, there you have it. That's my conversation with Lynn Ulbricht, mother of Ross Ulbricht. You know the story now, or at least a little bit of it. If you want to know more, get on the web. Go to freeross, FREEROSS.org. Honestly, the story is remarkable if you really get into the details. And maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it on the air if you'd like to call and talk about it. I'm going to open the phone lines in a few minutes here. First, I'm going to say it's KOPN Columbia 89.5 FM. My name is Mike Hagan. You're listening to Radio Orbit. I'm going to take a little break here. We're going to play a beautiful song by Ray Fitzgerald called Medicine Cart. I'll be back in a few minutes. We'll open the phone lines, which are 573-443-8255. If you want to call and talk on the air, if you got something you'd like to talk about, not necessarily the program or the interview that we just did, although I wouldn't mind if you did, because I'd like to hear opinions. I'm sure they're not all the same. And if you have anything else you'd like to chat about, sure. 573-443-8255. 8255, all right? 573-443-8255 if you want to call and talk on the air in just a little bit. In the meantime, this is Medicine Cart from Ray Fitzgerald on Radio Orbit, KOPN Columbia.